Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas expressed by the guest, myself, or commenters may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It is the state of giving or receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to more complex form. So what is Enlightenment evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to more complex human being living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is simulcast live every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific from the Enlightenment Evolution Hour page, Matrix Minds Facebook page, and the ET Whisper YouTube channel. It is also redistributed from the Forbidden Knowledge News Network and Conscious Awakening Network. Hey everybody, welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer, and we are here tonight with an amazing guest. Art Geyser is here with us in the house, and we will be bringing him in just a minute. I hope all of you are doing very well. This is actually the 4th episode of the show I've done in 2 weeks. 2 of those are pre-recorded for next week when I'm in Sedona. You guys will have the amazing opportunity to listen to one that I recorded earlier today, and that's with CM Kozeman. And the week after I return from Sedona, a couple days after I get home, I'm going to relax. So I pre-recorded a second one, and that will be with David Chase. But I will be here live in the chat with you guys, hanging out, making sure everyone's okay and everything's all well. So that's the announcements for the shows coming up. We do have a couple more guests after that, and then we'll be announcing them as we get closer. For the network, after tonight's show, you can go over to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour's other show, which is Out There Talk with Valiant himself. This is Valiant Thor, the band, the famous band from Guitar Hero 2, the lead singer of that band that plays the song Pangea on the video game. He has a show on our network, and it's called Out There Talk. It's an Instagram live channel, and if you want to go chat with him, he'll be live at 11:59, and all of you Matrix Minds folks, all the brainiacs out there, I imagine that either Matthew is going to be doing a show now or he'll be doing one at midnight on the Matrix Minds. So always go check out the Matrix Minds page on Facebook. Great bunch of people over there. And for the ET Whisper announcements, the only announcement I really have is the Sedona event coming up. If you haven't registered but want to go there, you can register in person or online. If you want to do the CE5, if you want to follow me or another presenter around for that event, or choose which presenters you want to see on what day, you'll have to get the preferential pass. If you just want to show up and let Synchronicity do its thing, that's the entrance pass. And if you want to do the CE5s afterwards, that's the CE5 pass on top of the ones that you want, or you can get the VIP and it gets it all. So if you guys are still interested in that, go to SedonaTranscendenceRetreat.com. All one word. Go there, get your tickets now. I will be flying out to Sedona Monday. So it will be a great time, guys. If you can join us there and you want to join us there, please do. And we do have some channel panel announcements coming very soon. We've talked to several of the big channelers that are out there right now. All of them you guys know. Some of them we've never worked with before. Some of them we have. But these are the biggest names in channeling right now. And we've got possibly 2 waiting on 3 and maybe 4 of them excited to come. So we're working on that as we speak, guys. I really think you'll enjoy once we do announce that. But we're thinking about being in Phoenix, Arizona for the channel panel on January 3rd, 4th, and 5th of 2025. That would be my birthday. I will be channeling on January 4 on my birthday, guys. That will be amazing, but more details will come out about that as we go. Now, let's not take any more time tonight away from our guest. Our guest is an amazing dude, and he is here with us tonight. I want to share a little bit about Art Geyser with you. Art Geyser is the creator of the Energetic NLP, and it has a magical ability to unlock the hidden superpowers within each one of us. Energetic NLP combines the best of neuro-linguistic programming, spiritual principles, transformative energy work, channeling, and intuition. And Art has dedicated his life helping people heal unconscious, energetic, and spiritual blocks to their success and happiness so that they can live in a more authentic, miraculous, successful, and joyful life. And Art's going to be sharing some of that here. But I think better than anything, as you guys know, I often like to tell you guys about what's going on. And sorry, guys, I've got to boot a robot here real quick. Sorry, guys, there is a bot in the house. I had to erase. Anyway, so instead of talking about Art, I think I'm just going to bring him in, and I think I'm going to let him share about himself. So welcome, Art. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate you being here. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm really looking forward to this. I love the energy around your show, so looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And we are looking to the first question that we ask everybody here, and that question doesn't involve your story. Yes, I want to hear your story. Yes, the people want to hear your story, but we also want to hear about what kind of things in your childhood opened you up to have this story. What kind of things shaped your childhood and early adulthood that really opened you to be the person who could have this story available to you?
That's a great question, by the way. I really like it.
Thank you.
And uh, for me, a lot of the answer is pretty simple. I think I just sort of came in that way, and I'm not one of those people like who, when I was 5 years old, I was seeing spirits, and I mean, I don't mean it on that level, but from when I was really, really young, I knew that there were all these powers of the unconscious mind. I knew that things like telepathy were real. And when I was young, almost nobody in the United States was into yoga or Hinduism or Buddhism. And I think when I was about 11, I started learning some yoga, and I didn't go deep into any of these things, I want to be clear, but I studied a little Hinduism, a little Buddhism, and I was just fascinated by all of these things. And in fact, and I started like hypnotizing my friends and my cousins. And my mom tells the story that we were in a library, and I was, in elementary school, I was really young, and I wanted to check out a book on hypnosis. So the librarian wouldn't check it out to me because I was so young. So my mom checked it out, and my mom said the librarian gave her this "you're a terrible mother" look.
Oh no.
So, and I mean, I was lucky in that obviously my parents were okay with it. And in comic books, they used to sell something called the Hypno Coin. It was this little plastic thing with a spiral on it. And when you moved it, it looked like the spiral moved. And you're supposed to use it to hypnotize people. And they must have ordered it for me because I couldn't have done it. And so I had that encouragement from my parents. And I was lucky in that my father would always, even when I was really young, I felt like we were always having like adult conversations. And I never felt like my ideas were in any ways being diminished or anything. We'd have these serious conversations. And he would occasionally tell me stories and he wouldn't tell me what the point of them was, but they were to get me thinking about, different things like, is there fate and different kinds of things. And my father had a kind of a deep spirituality, not that he studied, he was raised an Orthodox Jew, but he became a Reformed Jew. But so I was lucky I had an environment that encouraged me to think and be creative. But I just sort of had a natural affinity for all these things. And like I say, I want to be clear, I didn't go into depth in any of them. I didn't have particularly amazing experiences. But I was always fascinated by them from a very young age.
Well, having supportive parents is something that I hear a lot from people who had the opportunity to explore these topics that weren't so popular, mainstream, and were a bit taboo. Even as I was a child, in the early 80s, trying to communicate to my parents about things that weren't in alignment with the church. They were very open to talk to me about those things,
Oh, wow.
quick to say, hey, I think you're coming to the wrong conclusion, but that's yours to have, which was
Yeah.
nice. So, yeah, these things I think are beautiful. And this is what helps me navigate my own parenting. To know that supporting the interests of a child, no matter how weird or odd it might seem to you, if they have it, supporting that will lead them to bigger and better things all the way around too. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So tell us a little bit about how this young, curious adult conversation, having child who's interested in these taboo topics, becomes the you that you are now, the person who had a spiritual journey and who created this amazing system.
Well, I had some limiting beliefs that held me back for a long time. One was that, they used to say only a few special people had, psychic abilities and energy abilities and spiritual abilities. And I mean, it sounds dumb when I say it out loud, but I was afraid to find out that I wasn't one. I really wanted to be one of those people, and I was afraid to find out that I wasn't. Because again, the belief was you either were or you weren't. And when I was in college, the Carlos Castaneda books got popular. And I remember in one of the books, his teacher, Don Juan, is telling him, like, I want you to move around in this room until you find your power spot. And something about that really struck me, but I never tried it for myself because I kept thinking, well, what if I can't do it? I mean, it sounds really dumb now. And the other thing, I was hypnotizing a friend of mine, and I gave him unintentionally a whole out-of-body experience that really changed his life. And I realized, like, I really don't know what I'm doing, and I mean, at one point he was having convulsions, and and I thought, oh my God, I'm damaged one of my best friends, and everything was great. It's actually a pretty good story, though. It was a lot like one of those spooky stories from a teenage horror movie that he and I and some friends of his were camped at a beach in California in this cove, and there's nobody else there. And so, it's just like these horror movie kind of things. And I put him in a really deep trance, and I finally, and I kept regressing him back, and he was telling me what it was like to be in the womb and stuff. And at the time, I didn't believe in past lives. And, but I knew people sometimes in hypnosis talked about past lives. So I was just curious what would happen. So I go, well, I'm going to count from 10 to 1. And when I reach 1, you're going to be whoever or whatever you were before you were born. So I reach 1, and all of a sudden he goes into convulsions. He looked like a fish out of water. And and I'm like, oh my God, and I was afraid to just immediately wake him up because he was in such a state. And so I went, okay, you're Larry again. In a voice that wasn't his normal voice, he went, wake me up. I mean, again, it was just like a horror movie or something. And I went, wake up. And he was like wild for a while. And he kept saying, there aren't any words. Why aren't there any words? I don't know how to describe what happened. There aren't any words. Why don't we have words? And he's kind of going on like that for a while. And we're all looking at him like, and it turned out he pulsed out of his body 3 times. And we were camped under this huge boulder. It was almost like a hill. And at one point he said he was flowing over the boulder, looking down at us around his body. And he goes, and there's all these other consciousnesses around, and they all want bodies. And we're going like, again, we're in this very spooky setting. And yes, and the boulder wants a body too. And we're all getting kind of freaked out. And Milan keeps going, there aren't any words. And finally he points out at the ocean, and he goes, imagine you could go a mile out in the ocean and a mile down, and you picked a point, and that's where all the water is coming from. And he goes, I can only call it the source. And when I told you to wake me up, I was aware of the source, and I felt like I was being drawn into it. That's why I told you to wake me up. And so, and that started a whole spiritual evolution for him. But for me, it was like, I don't know what I'm doing, and this is powerful stuff. So I kind of closed down, and I had a degree in biology because as a young person, I was interested in all the mystical, but I was also interested in science. And I thought I wanted to be a scientist when I grew up. So I had this degree in biology, but I'm sure a lot of people can relate. I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life. And, this was years ago when people were still thinking about you had a career for your lifetime. And nothing seemed right to me. And I'd studied a little psychology, and it seemed fascinating to me, but it didn't seem right. It seemed like they were making all these, everything is exactly this way, and everybody is this way. And it fascinated me, but it felt to me like they were off in some ways. And so I didn't go down that route. So I graduated, had a degree in biology, and somehow miraculously, I got this job in a research lab at the University of California Medical School in San Francisco, which is a world-class research institution. And a few years later, I ended up managing the lab, and I had people with PhDs and stuff under me. They knew more than I did, but they were still under me. And it was a great job. We were investigating what happens when a woman's pregnant, when the estrogen, progesterone levels change. And they knew there were all these changes in the body, but they didn't know how that worked. And nowadays, people would call it epigenetics research. So it was fascinating, and I worked with great people, and it was a good thing to be doing, but I knew I didn't belong there. And so I ended up being stuck for many years. And I'd always had this belief that something was just going to appear and that would change my life. But as the years went on, I thought, maybe I'm just making excuses, and maybe there's something wrong with me, and why can't I figure out what it is? So I finally went to a talk on intuition one night, and they had a table where they were selling books and everything. And there was a break, and I went out in the hallway, and this was years ago when they used to have flyers, for people that are younger, pieces of paper on a bulletin board. And I'm reading these flyers, and one of them goes, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And when I read the words, it literally felt like a bolt of lightning hit me on top of the head and went straight down my midline. And
wow.
Yeah, it really felt like boom. And the scientist in me was going, what was that? And the mystic in me was going, well, it was a sign. What do you think it was? So I walked back in the room, and I'm kind of stunned. And I look at the books on this table, and all the books are about intuition, except one of the books isn't about intuition. It's about neuro-linguistic programming. And I thought, okay, I can't ignore this. That was just too weird and unlikely. So I bought that book, and then everything in my life changed.
What was in the book? What can you describe to people what neuro-linguistics is?
Yeah, so neuro-linguistic programming was started in the 70s in California. Actually started at the university I was going to, but a year or two after I left. And back in the 70s, the prevailing idea in psychology and psychiatry was all about insight therapy. So the idea was if you knew how you got the way you are, over a period of years, you would heal it. And so insight therapy often took, I remember a psychologist telling me that she goes, well, to do really deep work with people takes at least 5 years. And she was a wonderful psychologist, but that was the prevailing viewpoint. And the people who started NLP, the Neuro-Linguistic Programming, went, well, there are 6 or 7 therapists they could identify that got magical, rapid changes with people. So they went, what are they doing differently? So they videotaped them, and that wasn't like having your iPhone. It was this big machine back then, and used a number of things to study them, and started figuring out what were they doing that was different. And that was the birth of NLP. And one of the big differences between NLP and traditional psychology, and people define NLP differently now a lot of times, but one of the old definitions I still think is the best. And it's the study of the nature of subjective experience, the nature of subjective experience. So in NLP, the emphasis is on how are you creating your internal world, and how does that create your problems and your skills, and how does it create low self-esteem or high self-esteem? So in NLP, we do deal with the past, but let's say somebody has low self-esteem. In order to keep feeling low self-esteem, your brain has to keep recreating it. So we look at first, like, how are you creating this experience over and over again, and can that be changed? And sometimes that involves going back and working with the past, but a lot of times you don't even need to do that. Sometimes it's just really wired in programming that can be changed. And I've been an NLP trainer since 1985. I studied with all the developers and had one of them as my mentor, which was fantastic. But about the same time I was studying NLP, I started really studying energetic healing, hands-on healing, remote healing, psychic development, channeling, clairvoyance. And I realized you could do miracles with NLP, you could do miracles with spiritual principles, you could do miracles with transformative energy work and channeling, and that all of them had different strengths and weaknesses. So I started weaving them together, and that was the birth of energetic NLP that brings together all of those things. And all of those things affect one another. So there's ideas from NLP that I use to change some of the way I approach spirituality and energy work, and vice versa.
That's fascinating. And because most people here are highly familiar with channeling and highly familiar with like energy work. What would you say channeling strengths versus weaknesses are?
That if somebody has conscious beliefs, unconscious beliefs, or energetic programming that run counter to the healing work. So you've probably seen this before, where you can do an incredible healing on somebody, but they end up taking it apart and ending up back where they were, or at least somewhere not anywhere near as well as they were, because there are forces within them that are trying. That the unconscious mind loves consistency. To the unconscious mind, consistency, predictability is safety. So if you believe that you're inherently a bad person, there's a certain safety in keep maintaining that you're a bad person, or any other limiting belief. So if people have a belief structure that's fighting that spiritual energetic work, sometimes the spiritual energetic work works, but a lot of times it either doesn't fully work, or they take it apart and end up back where they were.
Yeah, I've seen that happen quite a bit. And this is something that when I do my channeling, my guides say to people about energy work, hey, the best energy workers in the world can help remove resistances out of the areas that are resistant and all the things, but your mental energy, your mindset, your beliefs, your thoughts, your neural pathways that you build over the years that repeat that process of self-talking negatively and all these things will just create the resistances again. So you're right back to square one. And some people have such an energetic resistance, they won't take the energy healing anyway. I mean, you could give it to them 100% and they'll take 5% of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they also, there's a lot of NLP processes you can do in an NLP way, but you can also add energy work to them. And when you do that, both things get skyrocketed. So one of the things we work with a lot in NLP is internal conflicts between your conscious and unconscious mind, or different parts of your unconscious mind or your conscious mind with itself. And NLP has great techniques for dealing with it, but the strength and weakness of traditional NLP is that you assume that everything is internally generated. So you're responding to an external world, but everything you're feeling is being generated by you. Everything you're thinking is generated by you. Well, you and I know that people have other people's energy in their space, or past life energies. So just because you're feeling something doesn't mean it's your energy. Just because you're thinking something doesn't mean it's your thought. So when you start adding that in in NLP, you would do work with the different parts of the unconscious mind that are in conflict. But in energetic NLP, we'd first drain the energy out of both the parts that isn't your energy. either isn't your energy or is your energy, but it doesn't belong in present time. So like old painful energies don't belong here. So when you clear out other people's energies and the old painful energies, all of a sudden resolving the conflict becomes incredibly easier, and you get a much more deep and lasting resolution.
I love that, and I know you're going to offer to walk us through a little bit of that too, your energetic NLP, and kind of share with us the process of that. But what do we need to know before we get to that? What do we need to know about energetic NLP and the processes that you've helped create with combining these modalities and creating your own with that? What do we need to know? What kind of things do we need to offer our mind and hearts?
Well, the first thing to know is not to believe anything I say. And in my longer programs, I make people take a pledge that they're not going to believe anything I say. And they start laughing like you did. And I go, but I mean it. And I made up a term, beliefs du jour. So when you start working with energy and spirituality and the great mysteries, you can connect and work with things. But as soon as you put them into words, you make them small, because they're multidimensional. And so I'll tell people, I don't want you to believe what I'm saying. I'm giving you my best version of it at the moment, but it's always going to be smaller than what your spirit knows. So in energetic NLP, the goal is always that what I tell people, the experiences I take them through, the energy work, the goal is that they connect more with their spiritual information and their deep inner human wisdom. So that's one thing that's unique about energetic NLP. So for me, I think there's a lot of people doing wonderful energy work, but a lot of them are absolutely sure they know what the truth is. And I think that's a hallucination, to be kind. So, like you take chakras. Some people say chakras are like vortexes that come out from you. In the Eastern traditions, a lot of times they describe the chakras as being in the central channel by your spine, and they're facing up, and they have petals like a lotus flower. Well, something facing up with petals is very different than vortexes coming out. And to me, I think they're both right. They're both. Do you know the old blind man and the elephant story? Have you ever heard that one?
I don't think so. It doesn't ring a bell right off the bat, but I'd love to hear it.
Oh, I'll make the short version. 6 blind men. We can modernize it. 6 blind people are walking, and they come upon an elephant, and they've never come upon one before. And one grabs the tail and goes, "Oh, an elephant's like a rope." Another grabs the leg and goes, "You're crazy. An elephant's like a tree." Another one touches the side and goes, "What's wrong with you guys? An elephant's like a wall." Another one grabs the trunk and goes, "An elephant's like this big snake." And another one grabs the ear, and so on and so on. And they end up getting in this big fight, and they separate. And the point of the story is, if they put all their perceptions together, they begin to know what an elephant was. They're all seeing a piece of a greater reality, but only a piece of it. So that's the way yeah, and I think all of us, I don't care how good of a psychic, clairvoyant, channeler you are, we're dealing with things that are beyond our words. Like my friend Larry going, "Why aren't there words in our concepts?" In my mind, that's what I think of it. So I encourage people, we need to think of things in simple ways. And in energetic NLP, we just don't think that's the absolute truth. And sometimes we might look at the chakras like they're facing up, and other times they're like vortexes, and other times they're balls of dynamic, multidimensional energy. And we just play with different ways of thinking about it, which is something I've taken from the NLP and brought into my energy work.
I really do appreciate and like that, and I don't mean to cut you off, but there's something to be said about that. There are so many people who say, "I am the authority on the subject of this," or anyone who says this is incorrect. And it's so arrogant. I mean, even the higher dimensional beings I channel, and I think that I channel well, and I know that most people do think they channel well, but I also know that I'm a human. I have my own problems. I can filter, and even if everything they say is true, they're still admitting that it's from their own perspectives. It's not from some universal pan of truth. It's from their ability to perceive their reality, even though it's more than ours. There's still a drop of water in the multitudes of oceans of consciousness just in this galaxy, let alone beyond in the universe. So yeah, that's always bothered me too, when people say we are the authority of the subject, period. Yeah, no, when you try to communicate, someone tries to tell me, you know, I used to teach people one-on-one channeling, and I'd have to go through this with everyone. What is your experience? What are you feeling? What are you getting at? Where are you having problems? And they would try to tell me, and just trying to put the words together is so hard.
Right.
Because multidimensional energy is not a human experience that's natural. So we don't even have words for most of the stuff.
Exactly. And even I love the way you described it, by the way, and it makes my heart happy to hear you say it.
Thank you.
Because like I say, a lot of the people that, and I'll use the term spiritual arrogance, a lot of them are doing good work, they mean well, but they believe their own press releases too much. It's kind of like, you didn't just come down from the mountain with the word of God. Even if we're connecting with God, but that it's still coming through us. And there's a couple of concepts that are unique to energetic NLP that we'll use in the process we're going to do in just a little bit. And one is called your miraculous self. It's not your high self, your miraculous self. So your high self is something that just exists. Your miraculous self is something that only kind of sort of exists until you start working with it. I think of it like a muscle in the body that you haven't used. So it's there, but it can't do much. But you start using it, it becomes strong, it becomes flexible, you can do things with it. And what your miraculous self is, it's when your spirit and your deep inner human wisdom come together and form something together. They really become aligned with one another. And I should say what I mean by the word spirit, because everybody uses it differently. When I'm talking about spirit, I mean the higher frequencies of your non-physical self. The higher frequencies of your non-physical self. So if you think of unity consciousness, when you start going down from that into individuality, but the higher frequencies of that, that's what I'm calling your spirit. And when I read somebody's spirit, what I get is something that's a lot like the perfect parent, in the sense that we all want our parents to go, whatever you want, dear, I'll support you. Like we talk about supportive parents. So in my read, and again, I don't want people to believe what I'm saying, just to entertain it, that when I look at people's spirits, they give people an enormous amount of latitude in what they can do, because your spirit sees a lot of different paths as being valid spiritual paths. So you want to have a wonderful, loving relationship. That's a valid spiritual path. You want to get your heart broken. That's another valid spiritual path. You want abundance. That's a valid path. You want to struggle. I shouldn't say want, but you're creating struggle. That's a valid spiritual path. So to me, that our spirits love us and care about our human lives, but they're just giving us enormous freedom because they're seeing a whole big picture and they see how it all fits in. Your deep inner human wisdom is just what it sounds like. It's very human. So it's very in touch with your hour by hour, day by day life. So when your spirit and your deep inner human wisdom are working together, they form your miraculous self. So you're developing personally and spiritually, and as much as possible, you're doing it in ways that give you a miraculous, happy life. And I don't mean nothing challenging or bad ever happens, but that overall, your personal spiritual development leads to living a more miraculous life. Because as you know, there's a lot of very spiritually evolved people that have terrible lives.
Absolutely.
I mean, I read once, it's really sad. Mother Teresa apparently was a miserably unhappy person most of her life.
I've heard many stories about that too. Absolutely.
And you think, here she's doing all this good, but she's miserable. And so in energetic NLP, and I think this is very much the way you operate too, we want the personal spiritual development, and we're bringing it into this life and into this world. We're not escaping this world. And sooner or later we will.
Well, that's always been my whole thing, is that in this spiritual community we have a couple different paths that people tend to really take very strongly, and they don't tend to progress through those paths. It's one where they're completely connected to just the etherical aspects of it, the higher dimensionality, and they don't have any grounding to earth or balance in earth. And then there are other people who are so much a part of earth that they can't connect to that spirituality part of it. They process it through the mind, but they can't process it through the heart and through the soul. So it really is hard for them to implement it. And, granted, I don't have all the answers on that either. I still have daily life things that pop up and struggles that we go through. But I think that's kind of part of the ticket, to find the way to be the happiest that you can with the things that you're creating and with those you love that are creating them. Because I've said most time, and I hope if my children ever hear this in the future, they don't take this the wrong way, but my kids are like my spiritual life Achilles heel, because I see them suffer and my heart dies. It's just like, oh my God, I hate watching them go through this. And I know that they're souls that are creating their experience, and I know that they need this experience for their soul, but it doesn't stop me from wanting to help as much as I can and giving so much of myself from that. So there is that whole thing. And I think people, when they don't get to the etheric part because they're overly mindful or in the mind, or they can't ground themselves from that etherical energy, they don't get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I can only imagine what a challenge. I don't have children myself, but I can only imagine, how hard it is to. Well, I think all of us know, it's just so hard to see the people we love suffer, and I'm sure it's magnified with your children, particularly when we have all these abilities to help people. It's sort of like there's movies and stuff where there's superheroes, but they can't save somebody they love, and that is part of our spiritual growth too, of course, of having to accept that, that people's souls are up to things, and we only have so much permission, and we can't inflict a healing on them. And along with what you were saying about, people being this, super of the earth or super the etheric, that the old ideas, a lot of them were somehow there was a nobility in suffering, and it was even you were more spiritual if you suffered.
Yeah, the old Catholicism runs heavy with that one, and a lot of other traditions, East and West.
Oh yeah, and some of the Eastern ones, they deliberately afflict themselves in different ways, and and some, it's. There's a kind of new agey thing that, well, if I just think right, nothing bad will ever happen. So I mean, that's one extreme, and the other extreme is that we're supposed to suffer. In fact, they made a remake of it that wasn't very good. But there's an old English movie from the '60s called Bedazzled, about a guy selling his soul to the devil. But it's very dated, but it's funny too. And he becomes friends with the devil, and at one point, the devil's going to go see God, and he starts throwing dirt on himself. And he goes, "Oh, God likes it if you cover yourself in filth." And just it's a funny movie because they just bring in a lot of these ideas, and when you think about them, like, why would God like that? And so in energetic NLP, the idea is to minimize, to not have some of the challenges and suffering that we don't have to have. But when we do have it, to be able to feel guided and supported and nurtured, no matter what's going on. So yes, we want less of the challenges, but being a human being involves challenges. It's the Dalai Lama talks about natural and unnatural suffering, and natural suffering, as I understand it, is like we're in bodies, the people we care about in bodies, things happen, we get older, and unnatural suffering is the things that we create, from our unconscious programming and karma and spiritual contracts that don't really need to be there. So the goal in energetic NLP is to not create as to create as little of the unnatural suffering as we can. But to me, even more important is that no matter what's going on in your life, that you have a foundation that has spiritual joy in it, and no matter what's happening, you're guided and supported and nurtured, and that on the other side of it will be something good, even if it's terrible in the moment.
I really appreciate and love that idea. I think the expectations of a lot of people entering our community is just that, hey, I am going to manifest what I want and what I desire, and nothing bad will happen. And it's a hard pill to swallow when you find out that you're a creator first, because you're like, wow, so I'm the one that messed up my whole life. People who've struggled. And then there's the part of, wow, I'm now responsible to create things. But then there's that other side of it too. Like, oh my God, why do I keep creating these things that are hard? But I think having tools to show you, yeah, that thing in your life really sucked and it was really rough, but what did you learn from it? How did you go through it? Did you go through it with grace? Did you go through it with understanding for yourself, sympathy for yourself, sympathy for others? And if you did, what great thing did that teach you as a human being and a soul? Did you find value from it? So having these tools, I think, are essential, to understand that Earth isn't going to be perfect, but it can be as gentle and as easy as our understanding of things can be, and as our personal attachments with it too. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Is there anything else that we need to know about energetic NLP before we get started with your guidance down, what this looks like up front and personal?
I'll just mention real quickly, there's a concept that we have: whole being, permission, and alignment. So a lot, most of the manifestation kind of work emphasizes your conscious what you're consciously visualizing. Some add in the unconscious mind. To me, there's a number of agendas going on at the same time. Your spirit has an agenda, your soul has an agenda, your conscious mind has at least one agenda, your unconscious mind has multiple agendas, your body has agendas, you exist in a karmic field, and you have spiritual contracts. So just because a lot of times people go, but I've really been visualizing what I want, and I'll go, yeah, but your soul is saying no, or your karma is bumping up against it, or your spiritual contracts. So in energetic NLP, we work on all of those, and we add in that what happens in life is also a co-creation. We're not the only creators. And the reason I'm bringing it up is so many people have been taught, like, oh, it's you're the creator, and often they'll beat themselves up when things don't work, and I'll go, well, I must have been doing it wrong, and I'll go, you may have been visualizing it perfectly, but maybe your soul wanted something different, or maybe you have unconscious programming. So I just like people to know, like, you're not a failure if you visualize something and it doesn't happen. There's just more to it than that. That conscious visualization is important, but it's not the whole story. So in whole being permission, we look at the spirit, the soul, conscious mind, the various parts of the unconscious mind, the body, person's karma, and their spiritual contracts.
Yeah, I think it's very important for people to realize how multi-layered it is. So, this is my understanding of creation versus co-creation, and I'm going to do a simple thing of this, and then can you share with me how you see it, because I'd really like to see your perspective too. Creation is something that you do in yourself, for yourself, with yourself, and it usually manifests something internally inside you more than the things outside you, unless those things outside are only related to yourself and your own energy. And then co-creation is anything that you're creating with the energy of others, for you, against you, by you, and for the same purposes or for the opposite purposes. And mostly co-creations deal with a lot of the stuff that's external to our reality and to our not so much our development. The development's more like a creator thing, and then the external world is more a co-creator, even though you can create externally with yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to this again because you described what I believe better than I describe it. So
Well, I like that.
no,
We're on the same vibe link.
the thing I would add to it that, and I know you're familiar with the Seth material, I believe, but
Yeah.
the idea that our spirit is part of collections of spirits, group consciousnesses. So there's also the agendas of the group consciousness that are affecting us. So I just would add in that. And I like what you're saying, that the internal co-creation, is one thing. The external, the more, like I'll tell people, they'll go, well, why can I manifest a parking spot, but I can't manifest blah, blah, blah. And I'll go, well, when you manifest a parking spot, there's not that many people involved in that co-creation. But other things, I mean, I had a client once, wonderful person, worked from the UN and was doing work in Haiti. And Haiti is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And she learned all about, visualization and manifestation. And when she first talked to me, she goes, I must be doing it wrong because, I can't get the money to the people, the government's siphoning it off. And she was like blaming herself. And I'm going, you're not the queen of Haiti. There's all kinds of people co-creating that situation. And I mean, she was just such a wonderful person. And here she's feeling bad about what she's doing because it wasn't working the way she wanted. And I appreciated that, but she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was up against a whole co-creation, and all she could do is try to make a difference. And when I really got her to see it, she went, oh, and she just, she could stop beating herself up and just do her best, So yeah, I'll just add, a friend of mine has a thing about authenticity that's, I think relates to how you described creation, in that my friend Cheryl, she goes, to me, authenticity isn't so much about what you're saying to other people. It's, are you being internally honest with yourself? Are you being authentic with yourself? And then she goes, and then you have a choice about what you say to other people. But are you being authentic with yourself? And I know when she said that, I went, ooh, I've never heard anybody say that. And to me, that kind of relates to what you're saying about manifestation. There's an internal level, and then there's what's involving other people.
I like that. I really do appreciate that. Well, thank you for sharing your additional insight too. I really think that we've got a lot of the same understandings of the principles of life as it goes. So, are you ready to walk us through what an energetic NLP is like, or walk us through some understandings of that?
Well, how about if I walk people through a particular process and then we can talk about it?
Yeah, please do. The floor is yours, my friend.
And I did this recently with a group, and I hadn't been, there's things that I typically would do now, but I've been noticing how much punishment energy is really up for people. And for people who know NLP, sometimes they go, who don't know a little bit about NLP, often they'll go, where was the NLP in it? And I'll go, every sentence. Because NLP, when it's done really well, doesn't seem like a technique. And so the first part of this process, I'm just going to talk a little bit about punishment energy, because it goes back to what we were saying before. People will have conscious and unconscious beliefs that will block them from clearing punishment energy. So punishment programming and energy is, I don't know if it's in every society. It's certainly in every society I know about. And it's so ingrained, we don't even think about it. It's so ingrained that we don't even notice the dark side of Santa Claus. So, we think of Santa Claus, he's jolly, he's happy, and he gives gifts. But if you're a naughty kid, not only do you not get a gift, but you get a lump of coal. So you get shamed and punished.
Yeah.
And in fact, I have this theory that no matter how bad a movie is, there's at least one piece of wisdom in it. And there's this, and yeah, it's okay, but kind of dumb movie called, I think, Fred Claus. And it's about Santa Claus's brother, Fred, who's, he's not like a bad person, but he's a little sleazy salesman. Not that salesmen are typically sleazy, but he is. But he ends up going to the North Pole and having to help Santa Claus out in an emergency. And the bad guy in it is somebody who's, when he was young, he didn't get the gift he wanted because he was naughty. So he's always hated Santa Claus. So he tries to destroy Santa Claus. And Fred Claus is going to his brother and going, this whole thing about, the coal for the naughty kids. And he goes, maybe if you gave gifts to the naughty kids, they'd get better. Maybe what you're doing isn't helping. And Santa Claus is going like, I never thought about it. And the reason I bring it up is that punishment is so ingrained in us. We punish other people, we punish ourselves. There's a lot of past life energies around punishment. And a lot of us are unconsciously punishing ourselves for past lives. Because if you've had past lives, you've had past lives where you did things that you don't approve of anymore. Maybe they were appropriate for the time, maybe they weren't then either. Maybe you were a sultan and somebody stole a loaf of bread, so you had their hand cut off, but that was justice. Or maybe you just tortured people. We all have things that we've done in this or other lifetimes. And the belief is that punishment, that we need to be punished, so somehow that purifies us. And I think we're in a time in human history where we're getting out of that whole belief. And it even comes into how people think about karma. And some karmic systems are about punishment, but like the Tibetan Buddhist system, the way the Dalai Lama explains it, in their karma has nothing to do with reward and punishment. Zero. It's just cause and effect. Everything you do and think has effects that ripple through time. And a way to think of that is, let's say somebody smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day for 40 years. And some people will be lucky and nothing happens. Other people will get emphysema, COPD, cancer. Well, the people that get disease from it, they're not being punished for smoking. It's a cause and effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I really appreciate that energy behind it too. Yeah.
And even for me, like, if you think of somebody, like Hitler. If Hitler's reincarnated now, I hope whoever the person is having a beautiful life. Because if that person is punishing themselves and suffering, they're just adding to the punishment, suffering energy in the world. I'd rather that, if you want to make up for being bad, bring in light, bring in love, have a beautiful life, and add to that. That's my opinion. So,
I never thought of that until you said that. We do, as a society, really live on punishment. And I can think even in the last week, when my mind has gone to that, you hear of someone abusing a child and you're like, that piece of garbage really needs something coming to him.
yeah,
And that's not a loving thought. That's not a caring thought. It's not like, oh man, what's wrong with this person who would do that? Eventually I get to that after the reaction, but
right.
it's reactive in us, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, we're so road rage. They cut me off. I'm going to kill them.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And just the punishment's the answer for so many things. And just so people are clear, I think there's people that need to be locked up, but not to punish them. I think they need to be locked up to protect us,
And themselves in some case, yeah.
or themselves. But it's one thing to do it because you're punishing them. And we all know from psychology, punishment doesn't tend to make people better. It tends to make, sometimes, but 90% of the time it makes people worse, not better. But that doesn't mean you don't set standards and boundaries and things, but you don't have to do it from that place of punishment.
Yeah, I actually know. I had a rough crowd of friends when I was younger. A lot of gang members, a lot of really intense gang members, and when I saw them after they got out of their prison stint, they were a more crafty criminal. That's all that time did to them, was put them in a position with more people where the environment is, kill or be killed, or let's figure out how to do better crime and not get caught next time. No
Yeah.
rehabilitation, no care, no love, no courtesy, nothing. And I see them now and I'm like, man, wow, that didn't do much for them.
Yeah, and in fact, when people believe that they're bad, then they can think that they should be punished too. So some of them do bad things, some of them end up back in prison, not consciously.
Yeah.
So the process I'd like to do is to clear punishment energy out of people's space, and more importantly, clear whatever that punishment energy was hooked into. So what I was taught, and what I seems to be the truth to me, is that everybody's the sovereign of their energy field. So if somebody else's energy is stuck in your energy field, it's only there because it's hooking into something of yours. Karma, conscious belief, unconscious belief, programming, spiritual contract. Nobody's energy has the ability to stay stuck in our space unless they hook into something of us that's giving permission. And the opposite's true too. They can't hold on to our energy unless on some level we're letting them do it. Often because we're trying to save them or help them. But then we go, well, they're an energy vampire and they suck out my energy. Well, nobody can keep your energy unless something in you is allowing it. So in this meditation, we want to set the intention that we're going to clear what that punishment energy is hooked into, and then clear the punishment energy. And it could be karma, it could be spiritual contracts, it could be energetic programming, unconscious programming. And the good news is in energetic NLP, you don't need to figure any of that out. Because you're going to put we're going to create your miraculous self, put your miraculous self in charge, and then you're going to give your permission for your miraculous self to figure all this out, to figure out what programming, karma, beliefs to release. And then your miraculous self, which again is your spirit and wisdom, will give you a download of wisdom and knowledge and concepts and skills and abilities, attitudes, behaviors to replace the old programming. And because it's coming from your spirit and your inner wisdom, you don't need to micromanage it. It works best if you let it happen outside your conscious awareness. So I'll take people through, and it's super easy to create your miraculous. All of this is super easy. I call these, a lot of what we do in energetic NLP, energy spas, energetic NLP energy spas. So like if you were at a spa and you wanted a massage, you have to have an intention. You have to give somebody permission to do it. And then you have to relax and let them do it. In the same way, in energetic NLP processes, you set your intentions. You give permission to receive the benefits, because just because you've given intention doesn't mean you're giving permission. You get permission for your miraculous self to be in charge. And then the fourth magical ingredient is imagination. So for everybody listening, when you do the energy process, if you want to get the most out of it, while it's going on, just pretend it's working. You don't need to believe it's working. Just pretend it's working. Like when you were a little kid and you pretend you were an actor or a singer or an astronaut or whatever you pretended you were, it had nothing to do with reality. You're just pretending. So while the processes are going on, if people pretend it's working, you open up doorways in the unconscious mind and the spirit to let the magic happen. And then later you can analyze it. But while it's going on, just pretend that it's working. So if for anybody who's listening to this, if you're driving, either turn this off or pull over, because my job will be to bring in energies, which by the way anybody can learn to do, and I'll bring in a whole symphony of energies. A lot of them are very high frequency, and they tend to put people in a little dreamy state, which in that dreamy state, it's really easy to let go of the old programming and to let your miraculous self upgrade it and update it. But you don't want to be driving or chopping vegetables or anything like that when this is going on. So I'd like everybody just to imagine, if you want to do this, a giant gold ball of energy, and we're all inside of it while we're doing this process. And it's our energetic NLP energy spa space. And if you're watching this or listening to this as a recording, just imagine it's happening in real time while you're listening, and you'll access the energies, because the energies both exist in linear time and outside of it. So just pretend it's happening now. And then set your intention that your spirit, with its vast awareness, and your deep inner human wisdom, with its very practical wisdom, are going to come together and form your miraculous self right now. Just set that intention. And by the way, your spirit knows what it is. Your deep inner human wisdom knows what it is. Your essence knows what it is. So you don't need to figure that out consciously. Just set your intention. Give permission to receive those benefits. And then just relax right now and just imagine that your spirit and your deep inner human wisdom are creating your miraculous self right now. Just imagine all these energies are coming in to help you. No effort, just permission and intention. And then just pretend that you have a miraculous self now. Just imagine you do. You do. Imagine that you do. Then I'm going to describe an intention. You can either reword it if you want, or you can just go yes to what Art said, because your miraculous self will have heard me, and your conscious mind and your unconscious mind and your body will have heard me. Set your intention that during this process, you're going to dissolve and heal karma, spiritual contracts, and unconscious and energetic programming that cause you to keep punishment energies in your space, or to attract punishment into your life, or to inflict punishment on other people. So set your intention that that's going to be dissolved and healed and updated with wisdom, knowledge, concepts, skills, abilities, and attitudes and behaviors from your miraculous self. So if you want that, you can just go, yes, I want that. Give 100% permission to receive the benefits. Give 100% permission for your miraculous self to be in charge. And then just imagine a whole symphony of energies is coming in now. And your miraculous self is deciding which energies it wants to use. And it's deciding what it wants to do with it. What karma it wants to release. What spiritual contracts it wants to end or revise. Programming, unconscious and energetic, that it wants to dissolve. And just imagine the energies working all over your energy field, which is in you and around you in all directions. It's working with all of your chakras. And by the way, you have a lot more than 7 chakras. A number of them are above your head, going up in the space about 3 meters, 9 feet. There's a number of chakras up there. There's ones below your feet. There's a lot of them in the body. And the good news is your miraculous self knows all about them. So just give permission for your miraculous self to be working with all of those chakras to evolve your whole relationship to punishment, so that you can release the energies trapped in your body and energy field. And your spirit can give you a new, authentic relationship to the whole concept of punishment. Easy, deep breaths. There's no effort involved. And it's hard not to be serious when we're talking about punishment, but go ahead and smile and relax. Transformation can be easy. It can be fun. Just because the subject is serious, we can relax about it. And a lot of the programming about punishment will be in your crown chakra, literally in your scalp, in your heart, in the base of your spine, or at the base of your spine, in those higher chakras above your head. But the energy work wherever it needs to work. And just affirm you're giving permission for this, to let go of what you don't truly believe, this old programming about punishment. It doesn't help you or anybody else. And you're getting a whole updated relationship to it. And you're also releasing energies in your body and energy field that create punishment for you or for others. Easy deep breaths, and just imagine the punishment energy is just flowing out of you into the earth so the earth can transmute those energies. And as you're releasing these energies, there's more and more space in your energy field. So let your miraculous self fill that space with more of your essence, with support of earth and universal energies, and with wisdom, knowledge, concepts, skills, abilities, attitudes, and behaviors from your spirit and inner wisdom. It just get, like with a phone or a computer, it just gets downloaded into you and integrated into your personality and your energy field. Set your intention that tonight and for the next 4 nights, part of the time when you're sleeping, not all night, but part of the time when you're sleeping, your unconscious mind will review what you did during this process. When it reviews it, your miraculous self will infuse it with wisdom, knowledge, concepts, skills, abilities, attitudes, and behaviors from your miraculous self. It'll take the benefits and make them deeper, richer, wider. It'll make the benefits higher and more multidimensional. And most importantly, while you're sleeping, the benefits will automatically be integrated into your mind, emotions, body, and energy field. So that while you sleep soundly, deeply, wake up feeling refreshed, the benefits will automatically be integrated into your mind, emotions, body, and energy field. And that'll happen easily, naturally, while you sleep soundly and deeply and wake up feeling refreshed. And that can happen tonight and for the next 4 nights. And then the last step in it is we'll dissolve our gold ball, our energy space. And it's very, 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 very important that we all retrieve our energy back, because we mix our energies up when we do these processes. So ask your miraculous self to pull all of your energy back out of our spaces, and we'll pull all of our energy back out of your space. If you don't do that, you can feel depleted, and it's not good for other people. So all of our energy comes back to us. If any of that energy, your miraculous self doesn't want it, it just sends it into the earth to be recycled. And then go ahead and wiggle your fingers and toes and start to lightly move and stretch. When your energy field realigns, your body wants to realign too. give the earth permission to ground you and to ground only your authentic energy into your body. It can help, like I said, it tat your body, stomp your feet. You can even pump your arms if you want. Just get the blood circulating. Come back to the planet.
That was absolutely amazing. I don't know if you had more instruction after. I had to say that the thought to let this miraculous self, that part of your extended self, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, that miraculous self energy, letting it do the work for you is an amazing concept too, because a lot of time we want to overanalyze what needs to be done with what energy and what consciousness, and those techniques can be great for good visualizers or good strong mental people, but this is good for all the types of people.
Thank you for saying that. And part of what I like about it, I can be working with a couple hundred people and everybody's having their own experience, which I mean, it's to a point anyways, but it really gives them permission. So some of my programs, I have people who've been doing energy work for 30 years and people that are brand new, and they're all getting whatever they need, you know.
I love that, and I feel very calm and serene too after that. I threw some extra intention on mine and let it go, but that energy is absolutely amazing. And yeah, the meditations, when you understand and are good at guiding people through meditations or techniques like that, it can be something great for everyone. But what if you notice is kind of a similar thing that is with everyone, besides the similarity that everyone feels different? Is there any common themes that people have come to you and said, hey, my work with you or you're teaching me of this did this, and you hear it more than not?
Yeah, I mean, kind of on a high level, people, they're happier, they're more confident, they feel more freedom spiritually, more permission to be authentic. Sometimes I'm making no health claims, but sometimes they get amazing improvements in vitality and health. And for many people, their abundance goes up. And let's see what other things. A lot of it is just for the people that are attracted to it, the idea of a more playful spirituality for a lot of people is what they've really been wanting. And, you know, I fully admire and respect and appreciate, you know, that most people teach a more serious form of spirituality. I just believe in the opposite, that the more playful you are, the more fun you have. I mean, sometimes during my programs, if people get too serious, I'll start singing Old McDonald's or something.
I love that.
You know, just, you know, because then, you know, of course, at first they look at me like I'm nuts, but then they get into it. And I first actually discovered it by accident. I was speaking at, I think it was the 13th annual Energy Healers Conference, which happened to be in Tucson that year. And I had a booth later, and we're in the lobby of this big hotel, and I was doing little mini energetic NLP sessions with people. And in some other part of the hotel, a mariachi band started playing. And I know there is some serious mariachi music, but they were playing the real fun kind of mariachi music. And at first, I'm wondering if that's going to be a problem. All the healing work went better because you just can't be that serious to that kind of playful mariachi music. And it was the first time I realized, like, in fact, it was really funny. After that, I was teaching a class and in one of my longer programs, and people were going to do their first readings and healings on one another. And I give them the whole speech about your students and your learning, and, you know, it doesn't matter if it works or not, you know, take all the pressure off. And they get started, but internally, I'm thinking, oh, I hope they all can really do it, you know. and suddenly I caught myself, and I went, and I stopped everybody. I just realized I'm putting out the wrong energy. And I got back into being playful, and all of them were like, oh, I feel so much better.
It is amazing how when you got the energy of a focal point of their consciousness on you, how much they'll take from that. When you're the person who's kind of teaching and guiding, how much they reflect back from you, you know?
And as I said, it made me laugh. I went, here I'm giving this whole speech and I'm doing the opposite, right?
I love that. That's amazing. We're getting close to the time where we're going to do the lightning round, which is some benevolent questions so that we can get to know you, not just as the energetic teacher of NLP and all of the things that you do, but also just as a person. But before we get to that, I want to ask you, a lot of the time people come to our community, it's because they need to think better, they need to feel better, they need to process better. What are some just ground level tips that you would tell everybody, whether they've been trying this for 1 year or whether they've been trying to break through their spiritual experience for 20 years? What's one common thing or a couple things that are really important to lay the groundwork?
In terms of thinking better.
Yeah, just anything that can help them kind of integrate to the process of going through their
Yeah.
spiritual experience a little better.
Yeah. Well, one is what I just said about being more playful about it, seeing kind of the divine humor in it, which isn't always easy. A friend of mine used to say, if you can't be amused at the fact that you can't be amused. But um, but the other thing is to treat everything that comes up as a potential gift, in that being able to kind of stop and go, okay, what if I see this as some kind of gift? How would I respond to it? I'm not saying that's easy to do, but let's say somebody's rude to you, that's a potential gift. It's a potential gift to look at what got activated in you. And or often when we, have quote unquote negative thoughts and stuff, to be able to kind of just acknowledge them and go, okay, what's underneath them? And in fact, maybe a more tangible piece of advice is most people have a rather adversarial relationship with their unconscious minds. So we rarely thank our unconscious mind. We just complain like, why did I eat that? Or why did I forget that? Or, all these kind of things. And spending just a minute every day, like just thanking your unconscious mind for the gazillion things it does every day that work for you, that can make a big difference. And I live both. People often ask, that is a green screen behind me, but I mean, it's night now, but that's what I'm looking at. So it's a picture of my view. And I live here in the Hollywood Hills, but I also live part-time in San Francisco. And in San Francisco, I have an apartment that's, many floors up. And so often I'd walk down the garage and then I'd realize I'd forgotten something and I'd be mad at my unconscious mind that I forgot it. And what I started learning to do is I'd go, well, thank you for reminding me now before I drove off. And in the future, can you remind me when I'm up there? And just that kind of thing where you, like you would do with a person, like acknowledging your unconscious mind and then encouraging it. Because, when I was going like, why am I remembering this now? Well, my unconscious mind isn't going to want me to remember it at all if I'm going to beat it up.
That's very true. Yeah, I never thought of that in that terms. You're absolutely right.
So I'll try to catch myself and go, well, thank you for that. I'm realizing it now. And can we work on realizing it sooner, more often, kind of thing.
And you got to see the gift of you getting back up to your place and getting another perspective of that beautiful view too, right?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I'm lucky in San Francisco. I have an even better view than this one. But yeah, I mean, so those are some easy things you can do. I'll give you a more, maybe one that would be more powerful for people even. When you're feeling an emotional state that you're not handling well, so you want to acknowledge it, not suppress it. But what you can do is imagine you can temporarily put it outside of you, temporarily. And when I do that, I just imagine like a ball of energy. And then imagine it grounded into the earth, and ask your miraculous self to drain the energy out of it that isn't really your energy. And when you do that, and then you ask your miraculous self to fill it up with helpful energies, and you bring it back in, and then see how you feel. And you might need to do that 2 or 3 times. And the goal in that is not to suppress the emotional state, but when we feel emotions, particularly the ones that we consider to be problems, most of that emotional energy isn't even ours. It's that we've absorbed that energy from other people. So when you put it outside of you, drain what isn't yours, have your miraculous self fill it up with helpful energies and bring it back in, you're not suppressing it, but you're getting to the authentic part of it for you. And we can always handle our authentic emotions. And do that 2 or 3 times, and almost always you'll feel a lot better. Yeah, like I said, the emotion. So I did this recently. Somebody had a lot of grief. Well, she still felt grief at the end, but she didn't feel overwhelmed by it. It felt appropriate. Where before she was feeling completely overwhelmed by it.
Oh yeah, that makes total sense with the energy of others,
Yeah.
especially in people who are very empathic, or intuitive. A lot of
Yeah.
time we do receive that other. That's beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing these techniques and these ideas with us. All resonated with me very highly, and a lot of people in the audience are very happy that you shared these things too. So thank you. I want to get to the lightning round. This will get us to know you as a person better. Some benevolent questions. If you don't like the question, we can pass. No big deal.
Okay.
But I think that they're a fun game that we can play that gets us to get you to know the art the best that we can. So,
Get on.
yeah. All right. What's your favorite color?
I'm not like a favorite kind of person, but some of them, some of the like maroons and the various blues are probably more of my favorites.
Okay. And if I ask you a favorite, which a lot of these are kind of favorites, you can always tell us what your favorite now is or what your favorite used to be, whatever feels right for you. What's your favorite food?
Again, I'm an omnivore. I have a lot of them, but if if I love things like pastas that, I don't eat them a lot for the obvious reasons, but I love good pastas. I don't eat a lot of meat, but every now and then, like a lobster or some kind of ribs or something. I can. It brings out the kind of primal art.
Well, that's beautiful. What is your favorite band and or song?
Favorite band. Jeez. Problem with a lot of the newer songs, I don't necessarily know who does them. But I'll have to pass on that. There's just so much. I still like a lot of the late '60s, early '70s kind of hippie music. I love a lot of.
I grew up on that. My dad was born in 45 and my mom in 61. So I grew up with a lot of the 60s and 70s music in my household. I still appreciate a lot of that. We were just listening to Pink Floyd last week. All right. So what about...
I think you won Jefferson Airplane. They were a great group.
Oh, yeah. That was actually one of my dad's favorite bands that he had was Jefferson Airplane. He really loved them. What is your favorite animal?
I really like wild animals. I mean, I like pets, but I like wild animals. And probably something like a tiger.
Yeah.
Real favorite.
All right. Well, out of all the places that you've ever been in nature, the things that you've seen, the beauty behind it, or the feeling and the beauty to it, what's been your favorite place?
Well, one that's spectacular. I think it was called Hanging Valley. It's in the Canadian Rockies, and it was scooped out by a glacier. So it's it's a small valley that ends on a cliff and, goes down thousands and thousands of feet. And the time I was there, and it forms like a bowl behind it, and there were all these streams running down it, and the view of the mountains and the valleys. I mean, it was just, my brother and I went camping there years ago, and we were just like awestruck. It was fabulous.
What was that one called again? I'll have to look that up.
I think it might have been called Hanging Valley.
Hanging Valley.
Going to build a mine there, and then luckily people stopped it. I'm not against all mining, but it was, it would have been a sin. I mean, it was like Shangri-La. It was gorgeous.
Oh my word, that does sound beautiful. Thank you. What is this is the last question too. What was your favorite childhood memory?
Gosh. Well, from early childhood, we lived in Virginia on a hill, and at the bottom of the street there was a woods. And I was just in heaven when my brother or my father would take me and walk through the woods. There was a stream and tadpoles and frogs and, all kinds of little wild creatures. And I thought that was just heaven.
Oh, well, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all these things with us too tonight. I want to give you an opportunity to tell people maybe some things that you have coming up, websites, how to connect with you, those types of things. But before I do, I wanted to share, I knew very little about your work, just what I had read through the internet and off of a partial interview that I had saw. Your mutual friend with me, Debbie, spoke highly about you, and I've come to trust her judge of character. From all the amazing people that I've connected to through her and around her. But through your interview, I felt that genuine nature of good-heartedness. And I just wanted to share with you that I've really enjoyed my time with you tonight. And a lot of the things you say resonate with me on a very large level. It's a lot of the same things I feel and believe. And I think the work that you're doing with people is extremely valuable and extremely helpful to people because, let's be honest, this community has probably the highest resistance in the areas of trying to decipher what we feel and think and how we process that to be to our benefit instead of our detriment. So thank you for your amazing work. And also thank you for being a guest tonight. You just being here and sharing your time and energy with everyone is a huge thing itself. So thank you. And I want to give you an opportunity to just share away what you got going on, how to get a hold of you, what's new. And we do have links below also. I flashed them on the screen a few times, but if you're watching this in the playback, it will be in the description as well.
Well, and I just want to say, I love what you're doing in the world. I love the whole energy and obviously I really like your philosophy. So I hope we continue the connection because I've really, really enjoyed being able to be part of what you're doing. So
absolutely.
The thing I typically recommend to people, I'll recommend a couple. One is it's free. You get a series of 4 videos that take people through some really powerful energetic NLP processes that you also, by watching them, you learn how to do them on your own too. And they can get to there by going to Blockbuster, the number 3 or the number 7, either one. I'll just say blockbuster7.com, the numeral 7. And that you get a video a day for 4 days, and then you have ongoing access to them. And every Sunday at 10 a.m. California time, I do a meditation called ChangeTheWorldFromYourLivingRoom.com. And it's a world healing meditation. But then the last part of it is a very powerful physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing. Because I like linking together that we're doing good in the world. It has to do with the whole punishment suffering thing. So I like linking together. First, we're helping other people, and then we all get rewarded. And that's free. It's every Sunday. But the thing I'd really like to mention is, depending on people who are listening to this, the first weekend in October, the 7th, 8th, 9th, so that's Saturday, Sunday with an optional Monday, I'm doing a program I do once a year called Discover Your Miraculous Abilities. It'll be online, and it's people consistently tell me it's life changing. there'll be a lot of clearing of blocks and limitations, but we'll also be opening up people's abilities to work with transformative energies for themselves and for other people. And there's always people in the program that are complete newbies. There'll be people in the program who've been studying energy work for 30 years, and everybody gets a huge opening in their abilities. And it's fun. It's a great community. You'll meet wonderful people. And I don't have a link for that right now. Well, in a couple of days. But if you sign up for like blockbuster7.com, you'll get an email about it. Or if you email support@energeticnlp.com, support@energeticnlp.com, and say you want to know about the October program, or if you remember it, the Discover Your Miraculous Abilities program, within a few days, we'll get you the information on that. And that's going to be, it's one of my favorite things to do. It's, the feedback from it's always incredible. Yeah, so those are three good things. I do one sessions too. If people are interested in that, they can again email support@energeticnlp.com.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here so much. I really enjoyed my time, and I agree with you. We have to stay in touch, and
Yeah.
we have to connect. I know you said you've been to Sedona too, and have someone down there who knows the playing field too. So I'll definitely be in touch with you and everything. And then I wanted to share with all of you guys next week. I will be in Sedona. If you're going to the event, you'll see me. If not, we will end up being back the week after the 27th, whatever that is. I'm looking on the calendar now. I'll be back on the 4th of October live with you guys again for the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. And I want to thank all of you guys for being active in the chat. You guys are amazing. You guys have really been supportive, loving, great comments, great connection. Thank you, all of you in the Matrix Minds. Thank you, all of you on the ET Whisper YouTube channel. And thank all of you from the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. We'll be back. Even though it won't be live, I'll be in the chat room if I'm able to next Wednesday evening. And if not, you guys will see me back on October. So I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And thank you guys for being here. And thank all of you for being there. And thank you again, brother, for being here. Art, you've been amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I've super enjoyed it. And thanks, everybody. I'll be reading the comments later. So thank you so much for being part of this with us.
Well, absolutely. We have one of the best audiences around there. So awesome here. So thank you guys for being here. All right, everyone. That's it for the night. I will see you all next week, the week after, but I'll see you live in October. And you guys have fun until then. And I'll see all of you on the other side. Love you guys. Have a good night. Bye.